Okay, so we look at the Surge at 21.9 and specifically my thoughts on the game. The Surge is absolutely a sci-fi Dark Souls, and it's fantastic for it. It doesn't pretend to not be borrowing many ideas from Dark Souls, and that's a good thing, because just because one game does something brilliantly doesn't mean other games shouldn't learn from it and use the same ideas as long as they build upon them in some way, and the Surge does precisely that. Anyway, before I go on, if you want to see my technical breakdown of the game, its ultra-wide support and performance, then check out that video linked in the description or head over to my channel page or the WideAsFcuk website and it'll be there. So the premise behind the Surge is very simple. You are disabled for whatever reason and are bolted quite literally, brutally into an exoskeleton, and the next thing you know you wake up battered and bloody outside some kind of factory and you're fighting to survive to work out how you got there, and along the way you're trying to work out what happened. It tells its story very slowly, dripping you information in small conversations and audio recordings. It's not delivered quite as well as Dark Souls conveys such information about the world and what happened, but it still is very good. It gives you a real reason to keep pushing forwards. I love that sense of unease and unknowing, not understanding what happened, and have that massive desire to find out why things got like they are. So whilst those looking for a massive, complex story with arcing roots, etc. might not get what they want, that just wouldn't work for this. That's not the point. It's a survival tale, and a well-conveyed one at that. Now, just in case it isn't already very obvious, I'm comparing this game to Dark Souls because that is the gold level standard. The gameplay and level design is pretty much perfected in that series, and this game is trying to use that style itself, so it only makes sense to compare the two, as people who've played Souls will be able to understand this game before playing. So yes, gameplay is very fluid. It relies on accurate modelling of hitboxes, precise movement and attacks. Every attack must be executed with complete intent to carry it through, because once you engage, if you screwed up the timing, the enemy will shred you to pieces in seconds, and even if you manage to dodge away to safety, your health will have taken a battering. For all intended purposes, the gameplay design from a technical standpoint is pretty identical to Dark Souls in the sense that it's not sluggish or rigid. Movement is rarely ever taken out of player control. You will die if you screw up, but you won't die otherwise. I haven't had any cheap deaths and doubt there ever will be one. Well, actually, the one exception to all this is when executing, you do an animation that you can't control, and sometimes this causes you to fall off an area or move somewhere you didn't want to, and this can be annoying, but admittedly it's rare. You need to read the level ahead as well, learn where there are holes in the floor, where enemies are hidden, ready to pounce, learn enemy patterns, and yeah, it's very satisfying and just fun to play. Now, if you know anything about the game already, you'll have come across the new mechanic this game introduces that really separates it from Souls, the removal of a heavy and light attack in favour of vertical and horizontal hits. This is because the limb system, wherein you can target an enemy limb, leg, head, body, and of course other pieces of them depending on the type of machine. Targeting a limb means whilst all hits will be executed towards that limb, though, you need to factor in how your character will swing his weapon. If you want to hit the right arm, then you need to horizontally attack, otherwise it's far less likely to hit, and vice versa for aiming for the head. The next step to this attacking is each limb will show a colour. If it's yellow, it's armoured, and if blue, it's unarmoured. Unarmoured will obviously take more damage and take out an opponent faster. It is more likely to stagger an enemy and generally make the fight significantly easier and faster. However, killing an enemy with this method will only reward you with some tech scrap, the game currency, basically souls from Dark Souls, and potentially a small drop of some kind. But if you target an armoured limb, you can sever that limb and pick its armour up, so allowing you to gain new equipment, and generally you will fare far better from doing this. There is a significant reward in choosing this harder route, but of course, as I say, it is a lot harder to do. It's a brilliant way of making you weigh the pros and cons to a fight, and makes you approach any fight differently every time. Do you want some headgear or leg gear? And this brings a welcome diversity to fights that would otherwise be very samey. Now, the last point of fighting is the ability to execute your enemy. So every hit gains you energy, and once it goes over the little line with the saw on, you can activate the execution, and your character will attempt to sever the limb from the enemy that you had selected. Whether the limb is severed successfully or not is down to how much you hit that limb before execution. So remember to target a limb, hit it primarily when attacking, and then execute, and you'll likely get a successful sever. It should be noted this execution will always kill the enemy, so it's very, very very useful. Just be aware it takes a little bit of time to activate it, so make sure you don't get hit whilst trying to activate it, otherwise it will cancel and you'll take a hell of a lot of damage. So obviously you have a health bar, and this can be replenished with one-shot healing injections or slow continued rehealing over time, but you also have a stamina bar, so every action will drop that down. It works as you would expect, there's no surprise there. But the big addition is the energy bar, which is gained with successful hits to an enemy, but it drops continually to 0, so you need to hit an enemy in quick succession to get that bar high enough to activate your abilities, either executions or using your drone to shoot or ram an enemy, for example. You also have these add-on pieces, which you can equip, which will allow you to increase your health, decrease the speed of energy drops, increase how much energy you gain from a hit, and so forth. And you can swap these in and out all of the time for new ones you pick up, etc. So there is a nice bit of optionality here. I've just gone for primarily health boosting so far, as I just don't want to die so fast. Enemy-wise, there are a good variation of foe to fight, each one having different move sets and weaponry, and learning their skills is always a challenge, but in a good way. However, unlike Dark Souls, going to a new area doesn't bring a whole set of completely new enemy. You get a lot of the same guys who are just more armored, and of course you still get some new enemy types. I must say though that one thing I wish this had implemented from Dark Souls, but instead they chose not to have it here, is environmental collisions. By that I mean your weapons don't interact with walls and neither do enemies. You can't miss-hit if you're close to a wall, but instead your weapon clips through the object. However, I will admit I understand why it wasn't included, as the levels here are far tighter than Souls. You're frequently in narrow corridors and so would always be hitting objects. What is annoying though is on the same strain of design, enemies can't hit each other. I hate that. I loved being able to use enemies against one another in combat, as it was a clever way to have large hordes of them kill each other before you have to personally kill the rest. One point with enemies though, there are very few bosses, nothing quite like Souls. When you get to one, they are well designed and a proper challenge, but yeah, they're just a sprinkling of them, which is a bit of a shame. However, to compensate, every normal enemy is on average more difficult than your average Dark Souls enemy. They are each their own mini challenge, and this means the way you traverse and explore the world is slightly different to Souls, and for that I am very pleased. But yeah, I hope more casual gamers aren't put off by the very notable difficulty to this game, because it really is a challenge, but totally worth it. The world, the environment is good, but nothing special. It does fit that sci-fi look that I know many people will love, but it doesn't seem to be able to get that same wow factor moments that Dark Souls is known for, being able to see an exquisitely built world ahead. Instead, it's samey sort of factory type levels, and whilst it's not a negative point, it isn't a positive. I'm neutral on the matter. I wouldn't go out telling people to play the game because the environment is amazing, but at the same time I wouldn't tell people not to play the game because of it. The other part of the world design that is different from Souls is that it is far more interconnected. There are a ton of fast shortcuts to unlock. The emphasis is on unlocking these rather than reaching a new medbay, the equivalent of a Dark Souls bonfire. It can become quite the maze sometimes, but because you are methodically fighting through the environment, you usually remember exactly where everything is. The last two gripes about the game are firstly, weapons are rather limited, so there are different types of weapons and different weapons that have different methods of attack. So some are one-handed, some are dual-wielded, some are attached to your exoskeleton, some are extremely heavy hitters, but the issue is really in the fact that you are limited to a single choice. Once you start leveling up a weapon type, like for myself I've focused on one-handed weapons, you can't switch down the line to a new weapon style as you'll be totally outmatched by the enemies. So yeah, that can be frustrating, but it does incentivize replaying the game. The second gripe I have is music choice. It isn't great. The big problem being the music in the medbay is just horrific and can't be turned off. It's a looping like country song or something. I don't know, but yeah, that needs to go in a patch soon. So The Surge is overall a great title. I'm loving playing it, and I know a lot of people are too. Yes, it's not perfect, and I think a second game, which we can pretty much guarantee will come seeing the success of this, will provide a more refined experience that builds on the more lacking parts to this, such as a better environment, a more interesting world, basically. That said, this totally gets a recommendation from me. You'll have a blast. Just get ready to rage quit every so often. Anyway, remember, if you want to see my technical breakdown of the game, then check out that video linked in the description, or just head over to my channel page or website and it'll be there. I hope that gives you a better idea of what this game has to offer at 21by9. Give this video a like if you found it helpful, and subscribe for future info. For any of the games at 21by9, head over to my channel or the WideAsFcuk website. Hopefully I've covered it. If I haven't, then leave a comment down below and I'll try and cover it. And if you'd like to support the channel, links to my Patreon page are in the description, and Amazon affiliate links are there too. See you later.